Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. My guest today, I certainly think is extraordinary. He's my son Lane Garrett, and he's going to be talking to us about life south of the border. If you've been thinking about being an expat, moving to Mexico, Lane's been down there for a long time, and he can tell us all about it. Hi, Lane. Welcome.
Hi, Mom. Thank you.
I'm Mom during this interview. Okay, so Lane, we got to start out with your age. Tell us how old you are.
I am 61 in a couple of months. Turned 61 on Thanksgiving Day in 25.
Okay, so any of you who are trying to figure out the math, Lane was born when I was 19. I'm 80 now. So we've got a few years on us. Okay, Lane, how long have you been in Mexico?
I have been living here full time this time for over 6 years.
Okay, and add them all together. How many years have you been living down there altogether?
Well, I spent, numerous entire winters in Baja California in the early 2000s. I'm now in mainland Mexico, down near Zihuatanejo in a little surf town called Troncones. But I spent probably 7 full winters in Baja. But I was working a seasonal job back then, so I'd go home for the summer, home for like 7 months and in Baja for 5. And then in 19, bought a house on the beach near Punta Mita, which is just north of Puerto Vallarta, and commenced a 13-month remodel, finishing right in the height of the global pandemic, just in time to open my Airbnb, which actually ended up being a great success and was a fantastic place to live and just a really, really amazing experience. And so that time since 19 until now, I've been here just full time. I rarely go home. In fact, usually if I go home, you see me for a
Yeah,
couple of days.
I get to see you.
Home being the United States of America. I guess home is actually here now. I'm a permanent resident, legally permanent resident of Mexico. My next step would be citizenship if I wanted to do that, but I don't know that I will.
And if you were to become a citizen, would you have to give up your US citizenship?
Historically, no, but the current administration has some other ideas about that. So that's another reason to just not do it right now.
Okay, okay. So, Lane, if we have people in our audience who are thinking about moving to Mexico, tell us what it's like to live there. You've been there a long time. I think the first thing I want to ask is how important is it to be able to speak Spanish?
That's an excellent question. It depends on what you want out of your experience of living in Mexico. My Mexican friends tell me I speak Spanish very well. Um, I know that I still speak a little bit like Tarzan, pretty simplified version of Spanish. But I do, I know that I am much more advanced than most of the expats. Many expats that have been here for 20 plus years still can't do anything but, order a meal or ask for another beer or something. So you can get by that way very easily. In the tourist zones of Mexico, um, for sure, the waiters, taxi drivers, hoteliers, those types of people, there's always someone around that speaks English well enough to communicate. But if you want a more culturally immersive experience and you want to have Mexican friends, I mean, there are plenty of Mexicans you can be friends with who speak English as well. I have many, but nonetheless, it's just a different experience if you can speak their language. They look at you a little bit differently, treat you a little bit differently, I believe. And certainly, well, for me, my experience of building, I've built 5 houses basically here in Mexico. So that really was how I learned most of my Spanish, is being immersed and needing to communicate to the guys that were working for me and with me on construction. Um, so my vocabulary is a little construction centric sometimes, but nonetheless, it's really handy, just for day to day life in Mexico. So, um, and it's also seems like when your vocabulary hits a certain point, it just keeps morphing a little bit bigger, because things start to make sense to you when you hear them. I don't know. This is a long answer, but you don't have to speak Spanish, bottom
Okay.
line, but you get a
Okay.
different experience if you do.
So there's no reason to let that stop you, but
No.
it sounds like you're going to have a much richer experience in terms of just living and friendships and so on and interactions. And
Yeah,
maybe,
and even just the things that you decide you want to try, or places you want to go and things like that. If you speak Spanish, the whole country is your oyster, so to speak. Whereas otherwise, you might stick to, Puerto Vallarta and Zihuatanejo and the bigger tourist towns that are, easy to get around, because there's tons of Americans and Canadians in particular down here.
okay. And Lane, I know you love living in Mexico. Tell us why.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a big answer, big question. I mean, for me, what drew me here, what has drawn me here my whole life, is warm water surfing. That was my original um, quest. But particularly, I suppose, speaking Spanish, the Mexican people, well, I started having these experiences way back when, though, when I didn't speak Spanish well at all. But for instance, one day I was out on the East Cape near Cabo San Lucas, but this was in, gosh, I don't know, 96 or something like that. There was nothing much out there back then. A few houses, no hotels. The road was terrible. It took, an hour to go 15 miles. And my rental Jeep broke down out there one day. And I was sitting there by the side of the road with this dead Jeep, and I had been surfing by myself. And this family came by in this very old Toyota Corolla hatchback, and the window in the back had been broken out, and there was 4 or 5 kids sitting in that back window, and pretty much everything this entire family owned was in this little car, and this little car was not well. It was leaking so much oil that you could literally see the line of oil into the dust as it was going along in front of me. But this gentleman, this fisherman, he was an oyster diver, and he was moving from that fish camp to another fish camp. It was that time of the year for them to change locations. And he just they stopped, of course, because that's just what you do in Baja. You don't just leave people stranded by the side of the road out in the middle of nowhere where they could literally die from heat and so forth. He stops and he asked me what was going on. I was able, in my marginal Spanish, to tell him my Jeep was dead. And he insisted on towing me back to San Jose. And I tried and tried and tried to talk him out of it. I was like, no, 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 I could just come with you and I can come back and get the Jeep. No, 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 no. So he pulls out this old rope out of the back of his car and ties it onto the bumper of my Jeep. And he pulled me all the way into San Jose. And it took us from where I was then, it probably would have been a half an hour to drive, and it took us at least an hour. And he had to stop every few minutes and dump another quart of used motor oil back into this old engine that was leaking so bad. And I had a few snacks and some water and stuff, and I gave it all to the kids, and they were sitting in the back drinking this water and eating the snacks and waving at me out of the back of the thing. I will never forget that experience. It's giving me goosebumps right now, because that to me kind of epitomizes the true nature of the Mexican people, the generosity to the point of just insisting on helping, sharing whatever they may have with you. And so that's a big part of it. And it's so sad that, the media and everything. I mean, granted, Mexico does have its problems with crime, with corruption, huge problems. And the locals will tell you this. They admit it readily. But that's such a tiny percentage of the actual population that engages in that kind of stuff, that the whole rest of this incredible culture of generous, warm, affectionate, loving people gets labeled with that stuff. Because my little story about getting towed back to town by this cute little family with, nothing. And then when we got there, I only had, I don't know, I think I had about the equivalent of maybe $20 worth of pesos. And I tried to give it to him and he wouldn't take it and he wouldn't take it and he couldn't take it. So finally I just snuck it and gave it to the kids as they were getting ready to drive away. They were looking at me like, what? And I just trusted eventually they gave it to Dad. But yeah, that is a big draw for me. And I've moved around quite a bit, and it's an overarching theme is that once, particularly if you speak some Spanish, particularly if you smile or wave to people, because they'll have a game face on as they go to pass you on the street or whatever. And if you break the ice and smile and wave or say Buenas tardes, man, you get it back times 5 every time. So happy to say hello to you. So happy to say good afternoon. So happy to just, interact that way. So there's that. Everybody knows Mexican food is the best. That's another reason to live here. And it truly is. I don't know if you know this. I just recently learned this. UNESCO put into their global cultural heritage list of the best things on the planet Mexican food.
Oh, I
And
love that.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything from the most basic little fonda that, all the workers eat at to high-end cuisine in Mexico City and everywhere in between. I mean, Mexican food is incredible.
Okay, so there are other things too. I mean, one that comes to my mind is I know lots of people who have gone south of the border to have medical issues addressed, surgeries and dental things and so on. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that's so available even to people who aren't down there, Mexicans living there? Why does that work that way?
Well, it's unfortunately the U.S. industry of medical treatment is just so incredibly broken, and here it's not. I mean, so I generally will go to a private hospital if I need things, and I've had injuries here. I've had sea urchin spines. I had a cactus spine stuck in my finger. I've had a dog bite. It was my own dog. It was an accident, but it got terribly infected, and I had to have surgery. And so I'll just go and pay for things like that. And like, for instance, that surgery for the dog bite, it was, it probably took way over an hour. And it was 20 stitches holding open this big wound so that it had to heal from the inside out. And I went back for checkups and for removals and never had to pay another dime. And that was like, I think it was $280 for that, which would have been probably 2,800, 3,500 or something like that in the States. I had an implant done from a tooth that I had to have extracted that broke, and got the German titanium implant and the whole procedure, the crown, all of it, A to Z, start to finish, and it cost just slightly under $1,000, and the quote I had at home was $4,000. So, there's another little anecdote. Here's one. I deal with type 1 diabetes. And up until very recently, well, now that's a whole nother conversation about the insurance, but I carry my insurance at home, I mean, in the States. And my deductibles and co-pays for my diabetes supplies, insulin and needles and sensors and so forth, were the same exact price almost exactly to the nickel of me just buying them here retail. All those same supplies, paying the full price for everything was the same as just the copays in the States. So everything is more affordable. I've met and heard of many people. A friend of mine actually just had a heart nerve ablation done down here and spent 3 days in the hospital. His surgeon was apparently went to school in the States at, I believe, at Johns Hopkins. And so his surgeon in San Diego knew this guy that he ended up going to in Morelia, which is a big city near where I am now. And he said, "Oh, that guy, I know that guy. He was top of the class in my class." And so he ended up going there. That made him feel a lot more comfortable. And again, the cost was less than a quarter of what it was quoted at home in the States. So medical tourism, medical dental, all those things. Lots of people come down here, Guadalajara in particular, Mexico City in particular, for cosmetic procedures. Readily available, high quality, and again, a fraction of the cost. So those things, end up being a boost to the Mexican economy, um, and a huge savings. Canadians in particular, they have their form of universal health care, I guess you could call it. Um, it it works well, except that the wait times are often somewhat unbearable. Like if you're in pain, I've read online a lot about people needing knee replacements or hip replacements or these kinds of things that are not exactly elective, but not like you're going to die from it kind of a thing. So the wait time is often like 2 years in Canada. So you suffer for 2 years before you can get this thing done, or you can come down here and pay for it and get it done practically that day. And again, high quality, all the equipment, all the same, German manufacturers that make the titanium pieces and different things that you would get in the States. So very comparable care for a fraction of the cost.
It sounds like it. It doesn't sound at all like people are having to have treatments and so on that are less than just absolutely stellar.
Well, again, going to private hospitals. If you were in the middle of nowhere and you got hurt and ended up in a public hospital, very different experience. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's certainly pay to play kind of a situation. Even though the prices are so much lower, it would generally be free. Like friends of mine, surfers, my next door neighbor here, actually, the wife of the couple that lived next door, she cut her calf really badly surfing one day and went and had a whole bunch of stitches done on, an emergency situation because it was really bleeding and all that. And they wouldn't even let her pay anything. They just said no. And so she ended up having to leave like a donation kind of a thing. So the public help is essentially free. And in an emergency is, of course, way better than nothing, but maybe not quite as reliable as going to a big private hospital in Morelia or in Guadalajara or in Mexico City, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well,
Or in the first place, like Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta has incredible hospitals and incredible dental offices and incredible people that run them. And so you can go on vacation to Puerto Vallarta, have whatever procedure you have done, and savings that you're going to have will more than pay for your flight and your hotel and everything else while you're there. I mean, that's generally how it's perceived, is that you get a vacation and get to recover in a beautiful place and, get taken really good care of. That's the other thing, being taken care of. The prices, if you need aftercare or whatever for a nurse to come to your house or the doctor. I mean, doctors still have bags here. They still do house calls. When I go to the doctor, they take forever. You can sit there with them just talking about different things for so long. It's not that, got to move you out of here feeling that we get it in the United States. So yeah, it's very different.
so one of the things that I know puts the brakes on people going to Mexico for whatever reason, whether to live or get medical procedures or whatever, is the idea of safety. That's a big issue, especially because up here we're all exposed to lots and lots and lots of news that makes it sound very dangerous down there. I know you were talking about how lovely the general population can be, how friendly, how warm, how generous, but there is a safety issue, right?
Uh, okay, so in my opinion, absolutely no more safety issue than in Chicago or New York or Miami or LA or wherever. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, yes. But okay, so wait a minute. There are at times petty crime. There's still pickpocketing that occurs here. And maybe that occurs in those big cities I just mentioned in the States too. I don't really know. But those kinds of things happen. But like, for instance, this little town I live in right now, they take immense pride in the idea and, well, the fact that you can leave your bicycle or your surfboard. Most people don't lock their cars, but you can leave these things in your front yard or on your front porch overnight and nobody will touch anything. It is I mean, this town is tiny. It's small. It's absolutely beautiful. Total paradise. Surfing is incredible here. Food's really great. People are so nice. But the idea that you're that safe here, that you can walk home at night from a restaurant or from a friend's party or whatever, and it's just I mean, looking at the stars and, the worst thing that could happen is get a mosquito bite, maybe. So, I mean, that's That's an example. And sure, the wrong place at the wrong time, absolutely. Even in Zihuatanejo recently, there has been some activity amongst the cartel members, I guess, and a few people have been killed lately, and it has happened. I think that happens probably daily in Chicago, for instance, probably for similar reasons. Um, I don't stay out late at night. I don't go to bars and, I never, so I've never once in my experience in Mexico had those kinds of problems. Do people get into trouble occasionally? I mean, I'm talking about people, Americans who come down here. Yes, because often people come down here and they feel like it's, the wild, wild west and they can do whatever they want and act however they want. And that can lead to problems. I mean, that used to lead to problems in Cabo all the time. I used to spend a lot of time in Cabo, and I heard about, incidents happening late at night, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And it's like, well, what were you doing out there at that hour? Who are you hanging out with?
So you're saying if you're living a careful life, you're going to be probably just fine.
I don't know if it has to be characterized as careful, but just you know, a, a good human life, where you're not out drinking all night and going the places that people like that like to go and all of that stuff. I mean, those places attract a certain element, and it's that element that is involved in all those other things. And certainly, I've been approached. I used to in Cabo all the time. This never happened to me, not even once up there near Puerto Vallarta, but in Cabo, walking around the marina there, I used to walk around there by myself a lot, just looking at the boats, and I used to get approached to buy cocaine or whatever else all the time. I mean, it almost without fail, somebody would come up to me and offer me something like that. And so there are places that concentrate that type of activity. And back then, like I said, I was alone and I was walking around the marina after dinner kind of thing, just going for a walk, burning off a little energy kind of thing before I go back to wherever I was staying. And so I guess that made me look like somebody who was maybe looking for those types of things.
A customer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, at
So
least a potential customer. Um, so yeah, if you keep your nose clean and don't go places and do things that involve that other element of society, then you're not going to run into it. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Miami at one point, and I never had any problems there, and I know a lot of people have, but I wasn't out there doing those things.
so if you are going south of the border to break the rules, you're taking risks. If you're not, if you're going south of the border to just enjoy that country, its climate, its beauty, you're probably going to be just fine, just like you would be anywhere else, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. And this little town where I am now, it attracts basically, well, at least two main themes of tourists. One is yoga. There's a ton of yoga retreats that go on here, and there are hotels that are all oriented around that. And the other one is surfing. So those two groups of people tend to be health oriented, and well, not all, but most, shall we say. And yeah, so it's just super chill here. A lot of the restaurants close at 9 o'clock at night. There really weren't any nightclub type of situations here ever until about 3 weeks ago when the first one opened, and everybody's still kind of in shock that there's going to be a late night venue here in this little maybe it'll go away. I don't know. We'll see. Um, so yeah, it's what you get what you look for, you get what you put in. I mean, for me, the nature down here, that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm in Guerrero, way down south in a pretty remote little area, and it's so intact here. It's incredible. I mean, there's bugs. In my house, I've had tarantulas, scorpions, centipedes, and it's a pretty modern house. It's not like it's a palapa roof shack or something, but um, the jungle is real down here and the wildlife is real. I've had coatis right here in the yard. I see crocodiles. I went to the marina in Ixtapa. Oh my gosh. Again, I've been a boat guy all my life. I know most of you people watching don't know that, but I went to the marina just to walk around and see what was there, and enormous crocodiles in the marina, like swimming right by the yacht. And I was thinking, if you were walking your dog down that what would keep one of those things from lurching out of there and grabbing your dog or worse, grabbing you? Oh man, yeah. So it's real down here. I had an extremely close encounter with a big bull shark the other day. Actually, in 50 years of surfing, the first time I've ever been literally scared right out of the water. I got out of the water immediately. This thing was 6 feet away from me and twice as big as I was, and swimming right at me, looking me right in the eye. And okay, so touching on that, we did have on the day after Christmas, a 17-year-old boy was killed by a bull shark just maybe 10 miles from here. He was spearfishing and had a stringer of fish. And yeah, really sad situation. I didn't know him or his family, but yeah. So that made us all hyper aware. My friend was flying his drone every day, and we were seeing tons of lemon sharks, which aren't aggressive at all, but we were seeing dozens and dozens of them. And then when I had that really close encounter with what I believe to be a bull shark, he flew his drone and all the lemons were gone. And here was that same shark just circling right through the lineup where we were all surfing. So that was a little scary, but you enter the food chain when you enter the ocean. So
Well, and of course, that happens up here too. I mean, we've had the same kinds of fatalities off the California coast, all the coasts. What about places to live, Lane? I know that's a consideration for anybody who would be thinking of going south of the border. And I know from you and your experience, you've lived in some gorgeous, gorgeous places with your own surf break, so to speak. What do people find when they come to Mexico from this country, places to live?
yeah, another big question, really. One of one of the things that used to draw me so much to Mexico when I was young, particularly, was sort of the accessibility of something beautiful like that. You know, in California, I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to get something with an ocean view, much less something right on surf break like I ended up with at one point. Um, so, well, that leads you to cost. So real estate is still a bargain compared to Southern California. You know, the house that I had in Punta Mita, if it had been in La Jolla in a similar setting on the little cliff over the little private sand beach and everything, you know, it would have been whatever, I don't know, 20, $30 million, something absurd. And it wasn't even remotely similar to that down here. I bought a very old house for $500,000 and put a whole bunch more money into a really big remodel, and it was worth considerably more than that, but it certainly wasn't the $30 million La Jolla or Laguna Beach type of a thing, which is really what it always reminded me of, the setting that house had. So there's accessibility real estate wise. Even if you're on, like, if you're sort of one of your you've got a pension, you've got your social security, you have a fixed income. My opinion is that you can achieve a quality of life here that is so much better than what you could achieve, for instance, in Southern California. And granted, that's really all my, recent experience of living in the States is in Southern California, which we all know is extremely expensive. But everything, I mean, if you go to the market and you buy imported stuff that's been trucked down here from the US, then you can spend a lot of money on groceries. But if you buy the local fresh fruits and vegetables, the fresh fish that was just caught off the coast, the cow that was raised in the hills, you can buy the local farm to table type of stuff at an extreme discount. It's probably maybe 25% of what it costs in Whole Foods or in Sprouts or wherever you go in Southern California these days. So, you can save a lot of money there. The rent, you can get a very nice house for $1,000 a month. Maybe not with an ocean view, maybe not super close to the beach, but very comfortable, air conditioned, etc. So, $1,000 a month at home. I mean, in Santa Barbara, for instance, where you are, Mom, what does that maybe get you a room in somebody else's house with a bunch of roommates?
I'm not even sure it'll do that.
Yeah, I'm not either. So, yeah, the difference there is dramatic. Going out to eat. During COVID, the dollar got very strong against the peso. It was at one point it hit 25. It was only one day, but it hit 25 to 1. it was usually around 20, 19.7 to 20, 20.5, that kind of range. Right now it's 17.5. So everything is getting more and more expensive due to the decline in value of the dollar, in my opinion, more than the increase in the strength of the peso. I think it's more of a weakness in the dollar. And how that plays out, gosh, who knows? I mean, it's such a complicated recipe. Who knows? But right now, things are more expensive, and in these coastal tourist-oriented places, it's not cheap to eat out, but it's still way less than Santa Barbara or La Jolla or wherever you might be. Um, so, between the medical savings, the dental savings, the rent, car insurance is really cheap. Um, my bank account, my Mexican bank account that has pesos in it, I have a CD there that pays me 8.25%. So, that's almost triple what my CD in the States will pay. So there are advantages, many advantages. And one of them is just, I haven't had a television for 10 years, so I miss a lot of that news that we were talking about. And I know it's been like 40 years for you or something, but um, that lifestyle that you can achieve of being present where you are and eating incredible food, seeing incredible sunsets. Oh my gosh, the sunrises and the sunsets down here are just spectacular. The stars at night, if it's clear. We had a thunderstorm here the other night with lightning and thunder, which is super rare for January, but we had one. It rained almost 2 inches. So it's just, it's just nature. I love it. I love being in this real nature that's still so intact. It's not completely paved over and changed.
And I've heard it. I remember one time buying groceries, and the fellow who was bagging my groceries said, I'm not going to go into detail about why it came up, but he said, here we pay for the weather, which is very true. Southern California has wonderful weather. We think of Mexico as being so much hotter. And of course, you're saying the bugs and all that because the jungle, that whole climate. What is that like, Lane?
The weather?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, if we're comparing it to Southern California, which, arguably has some of the best weather in the planet, or it has traditionally, things are changing a bit, but you know what I mean. It's hot. It's hot down here. The summer months, particularly down here where I am now, I have a feeling I haven't spent the summer here yet. I got here right about the 15th of October, and October and November were considerably hotter than where I was up in Nayarit near Puerto Vallarta. The summer starts earlier down here. It starts being really hot and raining in May. And up there, it usually isn't until the end of July. The microclimate around Puerto Vallarta is pretty incredible. It's pretty ideal for humans. It's going to be hot down here. The bugs are a real thing. Mosquitoes, are the most deadly organism on the planet. They kill way more people than sharks or anything else do with disease. We don't have malaria here, but we do have some dengue, some Zika, some chikungunya or whatever that one is called. I can never remember how to say that one. So there, you take precautions. You try not to be sitting outside with no protection right at dusk and right at sunrise, and you certainly try and keep them out of your house so they don't get you while you're sleeping and stuff. But yeah, that's how you pay for the good parts here, I guess, is you do have to suffer with extreme heat, extreme humidity. How it doesn't seem like it's changed as much here as it is changing in some parts of the planet. Maybe because it's closer to the equator, maybe the climate change is less dramatic here, but it's hot. You definitely have. I mean, I don't think it's interesting too. Here, the architecture, there's a lot of open homes, open kitchens, big open patios, all shaded, of course, but they're just open. And I could never figure it out because when I was looking online and stuff down here, I kept thinking it's hotter down there than it is here. Why is everything open? And I still haven't really figured it out. I don't know why that's the case because it is hot. And I don't think I would want to live here without air conditioning, particularly in the summertime. I don't think I could do it. I'd be drive it. But okay, so here's one option. You can drive up into the mountains here to a beautiful colonial city called Pátzcuaro. I mean, it is spectacular. It's regarded as the most impressive Dia de los Muertos celebration, the what am I looking for? The way they celebrate it with all the decorations, the festivities are really, really incredible. And it's at 7,200 feet. So you can drive right up there in 2.5, 3 hours, and it's cool. It's pine trees, it smells like Mammoth or June Lake or whatever up there. And there's this beautiful lake with an island in it with all these homes on it. So Mexico has an incredible, incredible diversity of things to experience and see if you're not a surfer. My surfing habit has severely limited my experience of Mexico. I mean, there's so much to see here, but because I'm always trying to be near a surf spot, I have missed out on a lot of it, and I plan to change that, but we'll see.
Lane, you're a great advocate for where you are, for enjoying Mexico, and you're also a really good interviewer or interviewee, and I'm very proud of you. We need to close. We've been talking for a while. It's time to stop. But I always ask all my guests what they would say to this audience of persons of age. What do you have to say at the end of this interview? What do you want people to take away?
Okay, so if you have an interest in coming to Mexico, whether it's for a week and just laying on the beach and absorbing some sun, or if you like I have made a lifestyle of it, of living here. I think I mentioned I've barely been home. I think in 6 years I've only been home 5 times, and each time for a week or less, home being the United States, where I'm from. So clearly for me, I enjoy being here. I really, really do. Okay, going back to the answering your question, what I want to say is don't be scared. Don't be afraid to come to Mexico, because 90% of what you've heard, maybe 95% of what you've heard on the media is, it's sensationalism. It's what gets people to click on articles. It's what gets people to watch the news. It's all that stuff. The people of Mexico are amazingly generous and helpful and kind. And I don't know that anybody like that sort of adheres to the lifestyle that I was talking about, where you're not out at 3 o'clock in the morning going to clubs or whatever. I don't know anybody that's ever gotten in trouble if they're not doing that kind of thing. So don't be scared, just be a good human and come down here, and don't expect to act like you can do whatever you want and be disrespectful of the culture or of the people or of anything else. Just be, do unto others. It's that same thing that works everywhere on the planet, right? And if you do that and you come here and you go to the place that speaks to you, whether it's up in the mountains with the pine trees and the monarch butterflies, or if it's down here at the beach with the coconuts and the crocodiles, you're going to have an amazing experience. It's
All right.
a beautiful, beautiful country.
So the last thing I want to say to our audience is Lane is another example of our Sensationally Silver products. He has great hair. He is part of what we have to show and say about what we've created with Sensationally Silver. Lane, thank you so much for being my guest. I just think you've done a wonderful job. Thank you all for being our audience, and we will see you next time, okay? Bye. Great news, everybody. Our premier hair care product line, Sensationally Silver, is now available on Amazon. You can order it so easily, you can get it so quickly, and you can be so sensationally silver.
Sensationally silver.